Bad Brad Berkwitt Show is all about moving humanity forward and fighting for democracy. And remember, folks, every act of kindness is a little love we leave behind. Hey, folks, the man with the pinky ring and the New York thing. Forget about it. Bad Brad Berkwitt. And welcome to the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report web TV channel. Forget about it. My special guest today is a dear friend and a returning guest who has been on several times, as well as a Moving Humanity Forward panel. She is running for senator in the state of Tennessee against Marsha Blackburn, and she has a lot to say, and we're going to discuss hot topics today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to my show, Representative Gloria Johnson. Okay, well, first of all, good afternoon, Representative Johnson, and welcome back to the show.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I have some hot topics. Let's go ahead and let's just jump into them because there's several to cover today. Down in Tennessee, let's talk about right out the gate gun violence.
Absolutely. This is one of the issues right now that is really on the minds of all Tennesseans, not just the Nashville folks where we had the Covenant shooting, but it's something that's affecting every community in every county. And there's no question about that. And after the Covenant shooting, lots of polling was done, and all of the polling showed that 80% of Tennesseans are concerned about gun violence in Tennessee and want to see something done. And so back in March, when me and my colleagues went to the well, because the supermajority was just ignoring parents and students and grandparents and people who care deeply about this issue in their community, they got so discombobulated when they lost the message because everyone was against them and wanted something different, that they ended session almost 2 weeks early. And then they decided to have a special session, but they kept extending the time of when that would happen. I think trying to get their message right and trying to get some distance from the regular session that it ended in April. And they lost it again. They just couldn't control the message or their message, which didn't involve discussing firearms. And the people of Tennessee wanted that discussion. And the people of Tennessee realized that they were betrayed by the supermajority, where they didn't even allow discussion of red flag laws or a safe storage law, things like that. That's what people overwhelmingly wanted us to discuss. And that was not allowed in the call of the session.
Laura, I got to ask you this question with this gun issue, because I know it's in Tennessee, but it's across the United States of America. And the Republicans absolutely refuse. They can take their thoughts and prayers and they can stick them because that's not doing anything. I'm tired of Ted Cruz and the rest of them coming out with these BS statements with thoughts and prayers. Is it as simple as is it the money in their coffers from the NRA and other the gun industry that they refuse to deal with it? Because I cannot think of any other reason that they would do this on a consistent basis. Because like you just said, not just the people of Tennessee, your constituents and the people across America wants tougher gun laws, and the Democrats are not coming for your guns. They want, as you said, red flag laws and so on. So is it the money? Is it, as we say in Italian, the fazools? Is that what it boils down to?
The only thing I can see is money. It's for them. It's always about money and their power and control. And of course, the money brings the ability to keep power and control. And that is what I see from our supermajority. The reality is that many of these mothers that came forward during session and after were not Democrats. There was a group of women that came every day for like 10 days, Republicans for gun sense legislation. And then the supermajority referred to them as the hot moms. That's the kind of respect that they got. And then what we saw was the Tennessee Firearms Association would wear their AR-15 pins to the sessions and try to sit with and mix with the covenant parents. That is how thoughtless and uncaring these people are. I mean, it's remarkable to even see something like the way they treated those women and the way they treated the students. I mean, they called them insurrectionists. The speaker called them insurrectionists. There are people today that still think that there was some sort of insurrection, because the speaker immediately went on Fox News National and said that people rushed the chambers and that there was all this disorder and he was afraid for his life. I mean, that is just remarkable and a bald-faced lie.
Yeah.
There is no, we went to the well, we spoke, he cut the mic and he called a recess. So we pulled out a bullhorn, a mini bullhorn, so that people could hear what we were saying, because there were thousands of students, middle school, high school, parents that had brought their toddlers, had them on their shoulders, and they were just begging to be seen and be heard and for people to understand that this was important to them. And my colleagues across the aisle just walked onto the House floor without making contact, saying that they were spit on. They were not spit on. There were students yelling for protection.
Yeah.
And maybe spittle flew out when they were trying to be heard. But that's all there was. No one rushed any doors. There was nothing happening at that time that's not a typical normal recess in the legislature, except we were using that bullhorn to speak to people out there. But that's just because that in that room is so huge. If without magnified sound, when the speaker cut the sound and called for a recess, that was our option. You know, before session started, the gallery was chanting, but they were quiet when session was called to order. And then he called a recess. So to act like anything different was happening was just a lie. And you would see most of my colleagues, when we call recess, it looked the same as any recess we call, where people are just milling about, talking in their groups at each other's desk and having conversations. Except a couple of their members were filming us, which is not, you know, is breaking a rule on the House floor.
Of course.
One I think is silly, but you know, I think we should be able to video just like anybody else should. But it is a rule that they were breaking. So it's just really interesting that they would do anything to silence a conversation about gun violence and to silence members who were just trying to speak for their district, because our districts want something different and they want to see gun sense legislation, and they were not allowing us to speak. And that is why my colleague, Representative Jones, is bringing a lawsuit on First Amendment rights, because those were taken away when they cut your mic, when they won't allow you to speak for your district. You know, our 70,000 voters that sent us there are just important as the 70,000 voters in the speaker's district, even though he doesn't live in his district.
Of course not. Well, you know what? You should be put in for a medal because I'm calling him out. So your speaker is Cameron Sexton, who I've called his office before. He's never going to return my phone call. He's still running. Gino Bolsa, who's an insult to me, to my 50% almost Italian side. Gino, you're disgusting. Jason Zachary, you're disgusting. And Monty, is it Monty Fritz? Is that the other one? Is another one? Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable how they act, and they want to talk about, well, we can't. No, you can work across the aisle, okay, but you don't want to work across the aisle. So I commend you, because you work in extremely toxic. And the only place I know more toxic, probably, or maybe on the same level as what you're dealing with, is in Washington D.C. Because working with people like Green and Bobart and so on, is just would be impossible. Okay, the next hot topic I want to talk to you about today is abortion.
Absolutely. Tennessee has one of the absolute worst laws for women. Women are now not equal in Tennessee because there's only a very slim exception. There's not a full exception for life of the mother. And the Republicans keep saying that there is. Again, that is a lie. The only exception for life of the mother is an ectopic pregnancy or a molar pregnancy or a dead fetus. So none of the ectopic and molar are not going to become babies. That's just not going to happen. So to say, that should be automatic, but there's an exception for that. There is an affirmative defense for anything else that involves like life of the mother, like say you have cancer and need to be treated and you're also pregnant. And you have to decide about, are you going to damage the fetus with the treatment, or are you going to go ahead and get the treatment to save your life? And what our supermajority has set up with this affirmative defense and not an exception, a doctor can be charged, can lose their license, have to hire an attorney and defend themselves in court. So it's set up this relationship where the closer to death that a woman is, then the safer it is for the doctor to make that decision. And this just puts women and girls at risk. We are still a state that says we are going to force a 9 or 10-year-old girl to carry a pregnancy. That is hideous,
yes,
despicable, barbaric, and all the words. Because forcing anyone to carry a pregnancy from their rapist, that is allowing a violent rapist to choose the mother of their child, but not allowing a woman not to have her rapist baby. And that is so many kinds of wrong. But bodily autonomy is a human right. And so we should not take away the bodily autonomy of anyone, male or female. And so in doing so, they have made women in Tennessee not equal.
I want to ask you two things off of that talking point. Donald Trump keeps saying this bold-faced lie, and it doesn't matter because his cult is so tripled down in his BS that they don't care, that they're killing babies even after they're born. We know that's a lie, but what is he even trying to say? Do you even know what he's trying to use in that line? Because he keeps using that on the campaign trail.
These are people that aren't very intelligent. That's all I can say. I mean, because my opponent accused me of wanting to abort a baby after it's born. And that's murder.
Yes.
Absolutely not true. This whole lie that they have of late-term abortion is ridiculous. No one decorates their nursery and then decides to have an abortion. You don't have an abortion in the 8th month because you decided not to have the baby after all that time.
Right.
Those times of terrible medical situations where somebody's got to make a decision with their doctor about saving lives and how that's going to happen. And, these are traumatic situations for women and families. We have a woman here who had to make one of those decisions about a pregnancy that was not going to be able to survive, and had to go to New York because Tennessee wouldn't let her and her physician make the determination that they needed to make. We are traumatizing and re-traumatizing women with this issue by not allowing these decisions to be made by women and their doctors. And it's so disingenuous for people to pretend like someone is deciding in the 8th month to have an abortion. It doesn't happen. It's a lie. It's misinformation, and they should be ashamed and embarrassed of their ignorance.
I absolutely agree. And I want to make one other point off of that. You went back to where you said a 10-year-old girl should not be forced to have a baby. But these SOBs want to put Jim Jordan they did. They voted him, the Republicans. He attacked that 10-year-old girl. But by the way, Kristi Noem, who was having an affair, the party of values with Corey Lewandowski, factual information. I don't deal with any gossip or anything that's not true. They proved she was having an affair. She was married to somebody. I don't know if he lived in a governor's mansion or not, but she was cheating on her husband. Said the same thing, that 10-year-old girl should be a blessing. That the 10-year-old girl, I think she wound up, if I remember correctly, and that I'm not 100% sure, I think she went to Ohio or somewhere to have an abortion. That I don't remember. But Jordan attacked her. I think he deleted the tweet. He went on TV, never apologized, but they want to make him the speaker. Noam, who's so far up Trump's rump, says it's a blessing. No, it's not a blessing for, as you said, a 10-year-old girl to be raped and then forced to have her baby. It's despicable. And these people to throw God's name into the atmosphere, whatever, the dialogue, it makes me sick. It actually chases, even though I still believe in God, it chases people away from religion more and more because of the insanity that they use. And I'm glad you brought that up about a 10-year-old girl should not be forced. Not only, and you know this, well, you were a school teacher and you know this, but a 10-year-old girl's body is not ready to have a baby. And they don't care that what it does to her as a 10-year-old, that she may not even be able to have another kid after that when she was raped. I think it's despicable for them to stand on that soapbox and preach that rhetoric.
And they know that they lose on that. That's why they pretend with this lie that we have exceptions where we absolutely don't, except for things that won't become a baby anyway.
Right.
You know, ectopic, molar pregnancies, or, you know, a dead fetus, those are not going to become, you know, but, and they're only going to cause problems, but there's so many other problems and things that occur that either put the fetus's life at the life of the fetus at risk or the life of the mother at risk. And these are decisions that are so difficult to make, but they need to be made between the family and the doctor, and the government has no reason to be in our doctor's office. It's amazing to me that these small government folks want the government deciding issues in their doctor's office. And, you know, that is why 80% of Tennesseans disagree with our trigger ban. We may not all agree on where the line is, but certainly most Tennesseans don't believe that forcing a 10-year-old to carry a pregnancy is a good thing to do. And they certainly don't believe that rape is a reason to force any woman, no matter the age or girl, to carry a pregnancy. And so they're wrong on this, but this is all about ginning up the red meat for their MAGA base, that they have to have those votes to win a primary. They don't care about winning a general election. They think they can beat a Democrat. But what they care about is ginning up that red meat for the MAGA base that will go vote for them if they say, talk about these things that aren't true and don't make sense and aren't happening.
Okay. Next one is privatization of education.
Huge problem. You know, it's a big problem across the country. It's been happening for a while, but it's really happening in Tennessee, and it's starting to, we staved it off for a long time, but now it's starting to take hold. And we now have vouchers. And this is what we told them. What the Democrats told them is, as soon as they say it was limited for only 2 counties, Shelby County and Davidson County. And I said, once they start that, they're just going to keep expanding. Well, this year they expanded into Chattanooga. They tried to expand it into Knoxville, but able to get that pulled out. But very soon they're going to expand it to every county. Now, every county won't have vouchers and private schools for kids to go to use a voucher. But see, what they don't understand is it doesn't matter. Because if you're a rural county that doesn't want vouchers or doesn't have a private school, you're going to be losing funds year after year. It's the rural counties that hurt the most. So what our legislature did was sweeten the pot with this TISA, a new funding formula for education, saying this was going to benefit. Well, for 2 years, it helps some counties a little bit, some of those rural counties a little bit, but that's gone after 2 years. And what they found in Texas by having a similar type of formula is that your locals are paying a higher percentage every year and the state is paying less for schools. And now we've got a charter school board that will call for charters that locals say we don't want. They are overridden by a state charter association to force charter schools into they call them public schools. Charters are not public schools. We have 114 charter schools in Tennessee. 38% of them perform in the bottom 5%. 77% of our charter schools perform in the bottom 10%. We have only 4 charter schools that perform above the bottom 20%. And they're acting like this is a great solution. No, it's not. And there's not a state in the country that has vouchers where voucher students are performing better than their public school peers.
So let me ask you
Not
this.
one.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Not one. So these are not solutions, but it's a great way for hedge fund managers and venture capitalists to make money.
And see, that's okay.
It's
So that was
money.
You read my mind, because I was gonna say, okay, here's another one. Back to the gun thing. What is, you just said it, hedge fund and venture capitalists to make money. And correct me if I'm wrong, Gloria. Wasn't that a Betsy DeVos, how you say her name? Betsy DeVos or DeVos? When she was Trump?
Betsy DeVos.
Wasn't that her thing?
Absolutely. She was the she was chair of the board on American Federation for Children, which doesn't that sound like a nice thing? But no, it's all about privatizing our public schools. She's been donating to Tennessee for Tennessee Federation for Children for over, since at least 2014 that I'm aware of, possibly before then. And she was at the table in the room with Governor Lee and some hedge fund managers when they were talking charter schools. And one of the hedge fund managers that's in the room started a charter school in Chattanooga. They're bringing that same idea to Tennessee, but to Knoxville. So this charter school in Chattanooga, I thought I'd look into it. And I find out that Hamilton County's average reading level or percentage, it's a flawed number, but they say that 34% of Chattanooga children can read on grade level. But that is a flawed number, and it's manipulated to look lower. But this charter school that these hedge fund managers own in Chattanooga has a 17% reading level, only 17% of their students. And they're saying it's a number, it's a grade A school. And they're opening one in Knoxville. And I went there and I said, how can you say it's grade A when literally the percentage of folks able to read is half of what Hamilton County is? They had no answer for that. They do not care. This is about making money. We say that we only have nonprofit charter schools in Tennessee, but they're run by for-profit management companies, and they're paying for-profit companies rent for land, property, whatever. So there's all kinds of money going to private entities in these charter schools, and they're performing worse than our public schools, or along with the worst of the public schools. They'll do anything except invest in our public schools. They're going to drain all this money away. And the thing is, teachers in Tennessee are making less today than they did 10 years ago when you consider the cost of living. And so they gave this big raise this year. They said, oh, it's $129 million. This raise is huge for teachers, as if, 5 teachers got this amount of money. When you divide that across the state, we're talking about maybe $1,000 per teacher for the year. And what that means is they're still making less than they made 10 years ago when you factor in cost of living. And then the governor made this big production of by 2026 or 27, every teacher will be making, starting at $50,000. I'll bet you by the time we get there, $50,000 is going to be less than they made 10 years ago, considering cost of living. So they try to make it appear with these numbers that they're doing something huge. But when you do the math, it's a joke.
What year did you come into the school system?
Do what?
What year did you come into the school system?
Oh, so I started in the middle of the year. I started in the 86, 87 school year. I started in January of 87. That's when I started teaching.
Was there any rumblings back then about this privatization of school from the Republicans or anybody for that matter?
Not that I recall. I do not. I remember charter schools, but charter schools at that time were sort of an incubator for ideas. If charter school was an incubator for new ideas in education, it used to be teachers that would get together and start these charter schools because they want to try out something new, like, say, project-based learning. And so they do a charter school, they try the program, see how it did, and then the regular public schools, if it worked, could incorporate that idea into their public school system. I do believe they like to use the term school choice because it sounds nice to have a choice, right? Well, we should have a choice within our public schools. We should have schools that maybe focus more on project-based learning. We should have small, more structured schools for kids who perform better at a school like that. I worked with behavior disorder kids, and so for a long time, I worked at a special day school for kids who had been kicked out, gotten in trouble at the regular school. And what they found was that at this small school where there's more structure and less going on in the hallways and all that, and smaller class sizes, these kids did well. I mean, some kids would literally go back to their school and mess up so that they could come back.
Huh.
So why don't we just offer this type of a small structured setting for those kids who thrive in that? But as long as we're taking public tax dollars and giving them to charter schools and vouchers that refuse to take every child, they only take, they say it's school choice. Well, they should call it school's choice because it's the private schools and the charter schools who pick their students. Public schools take absolutely every single child. And I believe that public tax dollars should only go to schools that take every child.
Okay. On that hot topic, we're going to be back shortly after the commercial break. Hey folks, this is Bad Brad Berkwitt, the host of the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report web TV channel. And I want to talk to you about sponsorship. If you're interested in being a sponsor on the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show that features network guests and entertainers and people from all walks of life in business and other areas, reach out to me at ringsidereport2014@gmail.com. Again, that's ringsidereport2014@gmail.com. I'm finally in a position that I'm ready to take on sponsors. So, hey, reach out to me and let's get you on board. I want to talk to you about my book, Boxing Interviews of a Lifetime. If you watch my show, The Bad Brad Berkwitt Show, you know that I love doing 360 conversations with all types of people. Well, I made my bones in boxing over a quarter of a century ago, interviewing world champion boxers, people in the sport, and entertainers that love the sport of boxing, which led to my induction into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in June of 2021. And that's the ring that you see me wear all the time on my show. Well, if you'd like to pick up my book, Boxing Interviews of a Lifetime, go to authorhouse.com. Again, it's authorhouse.com. And if you would like to get it personally inscribed or inscribed for somebody that you're sending it to as a gift, you can reach out to me and we can arrange for something as well. All right, we're now back with my dear friend, Representative Gloria Johnson of Tennessee, who is also, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is also running for Senate against Republican Marsha Blackburn. We're going to get into that a little bit later. The next hot topic I want to ask you is, how can Tennessee win?
Well, a lot of people say that. Well, when Marsha's first Senate race, she's been in DC for 21 years. That's kind of a sticking point with folks because 21 years, she's still got the same talking points, and there's not much that she's done up there other than, spout a lot of things that aren't true. So the reality is, in her Senate race in 2018, she ran against Phil Bredesen, and there was an 11-point difference between, in her race and Governor Bredesen's race. And since then, we've had the Dobbs decision, and since then we have had this movement that has started that kind of got fueled by the gun violence issue. So we have built this multiracial, multi-generational, and multi-partisan now coalition that cares about women's bodily autonomy and that cares about gun violence in Tennessee. And they're starting to look at, why have we not expanded Medicaid? People are dying. We could improve mental health, which is a serious problem in Tennessee. If people have access to health care, they have access to mental health care. They'll put a few dollars here and a few dollars there, but $1.4 billion a year coming into Tennessee to provide care for 300 to 400,000 Tennesseans, that's a game changer, but they refuse to do it. So the reality is, there are so many reasons where all parties, Republican, Independent, Democrat, believe that we should expand Medicaid. They believe in raising the wage. They believe in our public schools. They believe in bodily autonomy for women. They believe in paid family leave. They believe we should build child care infrastructure, and they believe in cannabis reform. And they also believe in equity and equality. And so we're building this multiracial, multi-generational, and multi-partisan coalition that will not be divided on these wedge issues, because it is a multiple partisan situation where the majority of all those parties agree on all of these things, but they're being ignored by the supermajority. I bring a paid family leave bill and a child care bill that would increase child care seats across the state, and they kill it every year. The child care bill actually got through all the committees, but they just refused to hear it in finance because it had a very small fiscal note, just $14,000. That's very small by fiscal note standards in Tennessee. And it was even paid for in the Senate sweeper, because the Senate says any bill that's under 50,000 is automatically paid for. But they just wouldn't pass it out of the House. They're playing politics because they didn't want me to have a bill. Instead of caring about all the families across the state that desperately need childcare, they played politics so that I wouldn't pass a bill.
Has Tennessee ever been? Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just ugly. It's a toxic environment. It's petty, partisan bickering with these folks. And it's all about retaliation of people who won't do what you say, or people who speak out for the folks in their district. They cannot stand it if they cannot control you. And I work for the people. I do not work for them.
Right. And as you always said on my show, your constituents are Republicans and Democrats. You carry them all, whether they voted for you or not. And that's the way it should be. Has Tennessee ever been a Democratic supermajority? It's always been. It has been. When's the last time?
It has had a different Democratic supermajority. There's a Republican here in Knoxville who was also the mayor. He was in the House when we had a Democratic supermajority. And what you can find out is we didn't cut mics. We allowed people to talk. We allowed people to bring their bills. It was a different situation.
When was that?
Here oh gosh, that would have been, I'm not sure, probably 30 years ago.
Oh wow.
I'm not sure, 20 to 30 years ago, I think. And but this they're getting rid of our democratic norms. They're eroding democracy. It's like we don't even have democracy in Tennessee because they silence people's microphones. They won't allow certain bills to come to the floor. You know, my thought was always the way this should work is that you're trying to solve a problem. So if the problem is gun violence or the problem is wages, people bring bills to the floor or to committee. You have a true discussion on the bill. Why is your bill going to work better than this other bill? And what research do you bring to show that this is going to work? And then you do that. Everybody has a good discussion and you make a vote. But they won't even allow debate much of the time. They cut mics. They won't call on you. It's really quite remarkable. It is a march towards fascism. There's not a question. They talk about freedom all the time, yet they don't give women the freedom to have bodily autonomy over their own bodies. They want all of this. They talk about small government, but everything they do is big government. You know, we have a lot of our cities are having problems with affordable housing, huge problem, but there's nothing the cities and counties can do to make housing more affordable because they've preempted them at the state level to not allow, if a city wanted to say, all 15% of all new development will be affordable housing. Anything that they might be able to do, the state has preempted them. And it's all because of, they're working for the special interest. You go to their campaign finance, see who's donating to them. They're not $20 donations and $10 donations and $50 donations. They're all well over 1,000, and it's corporations and lobbyists and all of these folks. That's who the money in their coffers tells them who they're working for. And so we had our first federal filing for my race for U.S. Senate, and mine was darn near 17,000 pages because I had donations anywhere from $1 to a max out, but the majority of them were small dollar donations, and they came from regular people, not a single corporation. I don't take corporate dollars. And so that's what it should look like. Who is funding your campaign is who you're working for.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so people should pay attention to that.
Okay. Paid family leave. Hot topic.
Paid family leave. In Tennessee, 84% of Tennesseans support it. That means Republicans, independents, and Democrats. And the states that have passed it, it is overwhelmingly supported, 90%. What my particular bill is a conservative state. Tennessee is a conservative state, so my bill is very conservative. I don't think it's the ideal way to have paid family leave, but it's definitely working in places. And so when you've got a conservative state, the state's not going to want to pay for it. They're not going to want small businesses and businesses to have to pay for it. So my bill actually allows for the employee to pay weekly into it. It's almost kind of like an insurance, And so they pay in somewhere between $3 and $4 a week. And then after working a year, they are able to get 12 weeks of paid family leave, whether it's to have a child or care for maybe a child with cancer, some long-term illness, or their own long-term illness, or a parent. A lot of us are caring for our parents. And so it gives you the flexibility to be able to not leave your job without pay and be able to get that pay and come back to your job when the situation is solved. And it's just what it's shown is that people are happier on the job. There's less dollars spent by businesses for training. My bill allows for anybody who works a full-time job in the state of Tennessee, even sole proprietors, to have this ability, to have this paid family leave. And so it's frustrating when 84% of Tennesseans want it, but they are stopping it. in subcommittee because the NFIB doesn't want it to happen. And NFIB, they say, is a small business organization. Well, I'm pretty sure right now less than 10% of Tennessee small businesses are part of the NFIB. And when they looked into the funding of NFIB, the vast majority of it comes from Americans for Prosperity. So they're really just an arm of Americans for Prosperity.
What is that acronym? And what does it stand for, NFIB?
I can't even tell you right now. I can't think of it, but it's supposed to be a small business, an organization that small businesses belong to.
Okay. What I want to do before we close out is I want to give you 1 or 2 minutes, whatever you need. I want you to look at the camera, what you're already doing. And I want you to tell Tennesseans, you have my support. I wish I could vote for you. Unfortunately, I can't, but I can spread the word. I would like you to look at the camera and tell the viewers today watching this show, especially Tennessee, which I have a big following down there, why people should vote for you over Senator Marsha Blackburn.
Well, I think that it's time. Tennesseans deserve someone who's going to fight for them, for Tennessee's working families. We need to talk about making sure that everyone earns a living wage, that you're not deciding between paying the light bill and paying for prescriptions. My opponent voted to keep prescription prices high. She voted against negotiating drug prices so we can make prescriptions more affordable. She voted against capping insulin at $35. It's just remarkable to me that someone would vote against drug prices in prescriptions for families and for seniors especially. It's just remarkable to me. But she's not voting for Tennessee families. She is in the pocket of the NRA, one of their biggest receivers of donations. She's been considered one of the most corrupt congresspeople in DC before. That's been a couple of times actually. And most importantly, all of her money is coming from corporations and folks who are who make her decide how she votes. My donations are coming from Tennesseans because I care deeply about Tennesseans lifting people into the middle class instead of having people falling out of the middle class. Everyone deserves access to affordable health care. We can do that. It makes our economy stronger. It makes our people stronger. It puts people back to work. No one should lose their home or their business because they get sick. And every child should be able to go to the doctor. We need to improve our public education system for sure, but we'll never improve our public education system by draining money away to unproven charters and vouchers. It's not a solution. And we've got to do something to keep our kids safe and our communities safe from gun violence. We can do it. We do not have to live this way. We are the only country who does live this way. I'm a gun owner. I plan on keeping my guns. We are not going to take your guns away, but we should keep guns out of the hands of people who are dangerous. And we can keep our guns safe and locked up so that someone else doesn't get a hold of them. The biggest problems right now in Tennessee is guns being stolen out of cars. We can do something about this. We don't have to live this way. And so Tennessean deserves someone who cares about them, not someone working for the wealthy, the well-connected, billionaires and special interests.
Okay. And if you would give them where they can donate to the campaign.
Yes, you can go to votegloriajohnson.com. That is my website. Find out a little bit about me and donate to the campaign. Sign up to volunteer if you're in Tennessee. And even if you're not in Tennessee, you can phone bank from home for our campaign. So we'd love to have you on board. VoteGloriaJohnson.com is the best way to get involved.
Okay. I want to save this for the end because I don't want to, just in case you got emotional, I want to extend, I already told you personally, but my condolences again on the passing of your mom. And I was deeply touched by your tribute. And what I loved about your mom is I know she didn't pull no punches, and I know she was a Republican. But what I respected her, and even Debbie said the same thing because I showed her your thing, is though you probably maybe argued politically tooth and nail, Mama always backed you, and Mama wasn't going to let no one attack her daughter. And that's a mother, because I was very touched by that, because you know as well as I do, and you even know better because you're in a state that the Republicans and Trump, they have separated, especially Trump, have separated families because of the insanity. But Mama stood by you, so God bless her soul. My condolences. I wish you the very best on this campaign. I really want you to win this seat. Anytime you need to come back on or anything I can do to help you, you know, you got my endorsement, you got my show endorsement. You let me know. You know, I care deeply about you.
Well, thank you so much. It's always great to come on, and I appreciate the opportunity more than I can say, because it's, you know, we got to get the word out there. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, Tennessee can't win. We absolutely can win. We've got a movement happening here. It was 11 points last time, so I get 6 of those points. Guess what? We win.
Okay.
So it can be done, but it's going to take all of us, and we not be divided with those divisive and hate-filled things. Kind of the thing that, you know, now one thing I can say, my mom always hated seeing all the horrible attacks and negative ads, and it's always personal with them. You know, I'm going to go after them on policy, on bad votes, and on horrible statements that are not true, but I'm never going to go after my opponent personally. I just don't believe in that. And
go ahead.
It was hard for my mom to see those attacks.
I can, you know, one other thing I wanted to ask you, and I meant to write it in notes. I read when I was reading some stuff on you. Tell the viewers, and I'm actually interested, but tell the viewers as well. Your dad, correct me wrong, was your dad a DA?
No, Dad was in the FBI.
FBI, okay.
Agent in the FBI.
Okay.
We were living in Mississippi, and there was a lot of activity. This was the late 60s, early 70s when we were there. And there was a lot of Klan activity, KKK.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you about the Klan.
In Mississippi. And so they, the Klan, it was the synagogue was only a mile or less from our house as the crow flies. And so we actually heard the bomb explode. You know, we heard an explosion. My dad sort of, because they had been watching those guys, sort of knew what it might be. So he went out, picked up his partner, and they went to the location of where they thought these guys hung out. And sure enough, 3 of them drive up, and they arrested them. And so at that point, the Klan threatened to kill our whole family. And we had to move out of our house for a short time while they rounded up the rest of the folks that were part of that group. And then for, I don't know how many weeks, but for several weeks, all the kids' bedrooms were all along the front of our house. And Mom lined up our twin beds in the hallway because she didn't want us right in the front of the house for a time after that even. So it was, you know, it was traumatic times. And I learned at a very young age that hate and bigotry, and that, you know, it's not only do they hate certain groups, but they hate people who care about those groups or help those groups. Everybody does this. We're seeing a resurgence of that in Tennessee right now, this Christian nationalism and white supremacy. It's hideous. And it seems to be growing. It's scary.
I got to ask you one more question before we close out, because I thought he was a DA. Now I know that he was the FBI. Your father passed away. He's passed away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's passed away.
How do you think he would feel as an FBI? Did he retire from the FBI?
Yes.
How would he feel when he hears Trump and the Republican Party want to defund the FBI and come at, especially Trump, come after the FBI like they do?
I think about that a lot. And I think my brother is, you know, he's a Republican. And I think, you know, how would you feel if Dad was still alive and Dad was, when Dad was in the FBI and this was the talk that you were hearing? Because my father, he didn't always agree with everything that the FBI did, but he certainly, I feel like I always say I have a justice bone, and I think I got that from my dad. And he was about being fair to anyone and everyone, but he believed in the human dignity of every person. There's no question about that. So that, and then actually I also got it from my mom too, because my mom cared for anybody who needed something. She always wanted to make sure people had what they need, no matter who they were. And so that just came by that honest. And that's what I fight for.
Okay. On that note, again, like I said, I'm rooting for you. You know where I'm at. We the country, not just Tennessee, the country needs you in the Senate. We need people that are moving humanity forward, fighting for democracy, and really, really care about what the majority of people on both sides care about and want to get there by working together. I never hear you've never said on my show, I won't work with the Republicans. It's not that you won't work with them. They don't want you to work with them. They show it to you every single day. And they do it in DC. I just left DC last week. They show it every day how they're acting. But again, best of luck to you, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Is your football team playing today?
No, that was yesterday.
Okay. Oh, who was it yesterday?
The Tennessee. I went to UT Knoxville, so
okay.
it's I'm a Vol for life.
Okay. Did they win?
I don't do a lot of pro sports.
Okay. Did your college team win?
And you know what? I don't even know, because I went from event to event yesterday outside of Knoxville, so I'm not even sure.
Okay.
I'll find out later today.
There you go. All right. Well, Representative Johnson, you have a great Sunday. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. You too. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.